Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy I can still today in the afternoon, just at the end of our first day, to introduce you to our session on financing landscape of the European Union. We are going to set a very broad overview about our possibilities. We are going to see some 4 projects as examples, and then we are going to have feedback from very good financial experts, people who for years evaluated and assessed different projects. So let me start. Very shortly, I mean, EU clusters are surrounded by financial providers, and these financial providers are looking for projects. So we have EU funding, definitely. But we have as well EU public financial institutions like European Investment Bank. We have as well financing from public budget, be it national, regional, local. We have as well promotional banks, national promotional banks, regional promotional banks. The public support embraces all of this. But then we have huge market, which is private. We have commercial banks, we have investment banks, we have as well big institutional investors, big companies who have willingness to invest in new projects. Finally, we have the different funds, seed, private equity, venture capital funds. We have as well, which is particularly before the crisis, own resources in companies, in households. And then something which is for last years very useful, crowdfunding for new projects, for new innovations. So we have all range of this financing which can be tapped by clusters. So that clusters can really mix private and public funding to invest. That can align local, regional, national and EU funding by building a portfolio of related projects. Not single projects, not related, which don't bring much for the ecosystem, but related projects. Clusters can reach out to financial providers across EU, thus actually helping allocate financial capital efficiently. But let me just talk about, I can only scratch about EU funding. As you know, right now there are negotiations going on the multi-annual financial framework 2021-27, and now, since half a year as well, the next generation EU. It all started in May 2018 when the European Commission presented a package. And then it was the position from the European Parliament, and the European Council debated in February this year, and the European Commission with the COVID proposed new renewed version with this new instrument, this next generation EU. All together package. Business as usual, multi-annual financial framework, €1,074 million, and in addition, €750 billion. We all know this is under negotiation now, with all hoping that the negotiations will be finalized by the end of the year. European Council in July expressed their views. So let's go through what is there. I think there are 6 headings for which of them clusters could find the role. Let's start with heading 1, single market, innovation and digital, with the Horizon Europe as the biggest one. But as well, we have here Digital Europe to develop and help in digitization through developing 5G or supporting digital innovation hubs. We have as well Invest EU, leveraging on the EU guarantee public-private investments. On that, then we have heading 2, the ones for cohesion and values. And here, right now, it was added this new, the next generation EU. But with the previous instruments, still very important, the European Regional Development Fund, the whole priorities related to smart growth and sustainable growth, for smart specialization investments. We have European Social Fund for skills. And then Erasmus Plus for having students exchange. Clusters can play extremely important role in this as well. And Creative Europe for cultural sectors, right now very much in need. Many others. Let's go to the other one, the natural resources, where we have basically here the Agriculture Rural Development Fund, but we have as well Just Transition Fund, Just Transition, to make transition fair, particularly in coal regions. So you see already in these three headings, I can imagine you as people related to clusters, cluster managers, can imagine where and how you could act. But there are others. Right now, very important, resilience, security, and defense. So as well here, let me start with EU for Health. Extremely important right now, everyone would say. We have as well the European Defense Fund. The other one, you could imagine, as well for the migration, clusters can play a role in helping in assimilation of newcomers. And last but not least is the neighborhood funding, relation with our external partners as well in clusters. We have here in our conference people from neighborhood countries. So all these 6 headings gives us already the perspective for 2021-27. And on top of this Recovery and Resilience Facility with 672.5 billion euro, which is right now being developed by member states in order to present and be as soon as possible adopted. So EU funding can be used through clusters, as clusters can channel to final recipients, in particular SMEs, like we have experience with very efficiently with InnoSoup 1 project with Cascade Funding. EU funding can be used with clusters to provide specialized services to any economic actor in need, like technological advice, environmental advice, upskilling. EU funding can be used by clusters to mix private and public, align local, regional, national, reach out to financial providers. For clusters, EU funding can be used to build their capacity to facilitate collaboration, capitalize technological and market intelligence, which is in all these members of the clusters, and offer services. So, summing up, we are surrounded by financial providers. Everyone can contribute to the projects, but we would call for related projects which are creating a change, systemic change, as well as today was mentioned in ecosystems. So let me go today, right now, to invite our project managers, representatives of projects, who are going to show example of how EU funding was, can be, will be, maybe, used. What are the projects in order to get financing and in order to attract attention of this all, I mean all financial providers at EU financing landscape. And from this perspective, we are going to have this session. The session that from the very outset, when you think about project, you need to think if they are going to be startups created or they are going to be project scaled up. But in order to do so, you need to have a project which attracts attention of financial providers. And that's why I'm very delighted that Mark Mawini, Daniel Gassman, and Irene Bejenke-Walsh accepted to come and give their feedback. They have over 20 years of experience in analyzing, assessing, evaluating projects from their perspective. Mark from the perspective of European Investment Bank, Daniel from the perspective of the head of sector in EASME, a European Agency for Small and Medium Enterprises. And we have as well Irene Bejenke-Walsh with a very vast experience in venture capital, in private equity, in private business. So let me start and invite first Project Galactica, which was financed from InnoSub 1 by Josep Casamanda from Spain. Josep, I hope you are there and you are ready. Yes, hi Josep. Yeah. Welcome you.
Hi.
Please, the floor is yours. We have 8 minutes for each presentation, so please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for having the chance to participate in here. I'm Josep Casamada. I'm project manager at AI Textiles. It's a Catalan technical textile cluster, and I'm the coordinator of Galactica project. So first of all, I would like to introduce you a little bit the origins of the project and how we get together, which partners are together. So Galactica is a cross-sectoral project under InnoSub 01, and we combine in this project the textile sector and the aerospace sector, two sectors that at first may be far apart but have many points in common for driving innovations to market, and also on the uptaking of digitalization and advanced manufacturing. So we assembled a consortium with 3 clusters from the textile sector, 3 clusters from the aerospace sector, 2 from the advanced manufacturing, and then the project was complemented with investor ecosystem. So we have as partners EVAN, the European Business Angel Network, which can bring us into the project the investor perspective, the leverage with investors, and also a startup ecosystem like Science Park Graph, which is one of the European Space Agency business accelerations hub. So with that, we can have a complete picture on the consortium on how can we address these challenging aspects and bringing into together the different sectors to generate innovative projects group into this sector. So the starting point and the vision of the project was the different sector, textile and aerospace, are quite usually think as quite a far apart sectors, although they collaborate a lot in the value chain and the supply chain. But in terms of innovation, they are more like they are silo-like, so they do not interact to each other that much. They also are sectors that are generally unknown to each other, so a textile company does not know the specifics on of aerospace sector. And we have advanced manufacturing, which is kicking in into each of the different sectors as kind of a glue to digitalize and bring together the potential for a smart industry in Europe. The vision that we have with Galactica is to bring close those two sectors, thanks facilitated by advanced manufacturing and digitalization, to overlap these value chains, facilitate digitalization, and also to exploit smart industry aspects. And we aim to facilitate cross-sectoral collaboration through the outsider effect. So basically bringing 2 sectors that are different to generate new ideas, and that's something that is well known to generate new ideas and new innovative business models, like we've seen in the US for different companies where someone from one sector like IT goes into a manufacturing and disrupts the whole sector. We want to foster bringing together the different stakeholders and the different companies together while having support and a vision towards a smart industry as potential for growth in Europe and the generation of new companies. So in order to implement the project, we have established a comprehensive support framework. So we have basically four main steps in the support funnel. So we have the Galactic open space with the organization of different activities for cultivating new value chains using creativity, design thinking tools to bring together to generate the first step in connecting between the different sectors. So we have plan trainings with webinars, so webinars to first get to know each other, the different sectors. We also will organize cross-sectoral workshops, so bringing the different stakeholders from the textile industry, advanced manufacturing, aerospace together with facilitated with non-technological innovation tools like design thinking, creative thinking, and stuff like that to identify potential collaborations. We will also facilitate the learning of the different sectors. So making learning expeditions. So textile companies can go visit aerospace companies can visit textile companies. So we have a cross-border, cross-sectoral collaboration and generating getting to know each other, getting to know opportunities, organizing matchmakings as well to identify potential opportunities to develop new projects. And then we have also another cornerstone, which are hackathons. Hackathons are aimed to facilitate the generation of new ideas and also from startups on the Europe, but also from potentially from students from the universities in Europe so that they can get together and create new value chains and create new products, new services based on the combination of the different sectors together. And then we have the big package of support, which is the Cascade Funding itself, which are the Pioneer Acceleration, focusing on a lower TRL, but very much focused on create generation of an MVP, so a minimum viable product for single SMEs, and then orbital projects like as a large-scale projects where we have much higher funding. We will have at least two SMEs in consortia, and then those projects will be supported with coaching and innovation support during their project implementation. And afterwards, we have the last stage, which is the scale-up stage, where we will have the different companies that have been funded through the project supported to connect to investors, to connect to private capital, organization of an investment forum with investors from the EVAN network that can get together with both startups and established companies to scale up their innovation, to bring it to market and make a economic impact to the EU. So in summary, basically we will launch two calls for proposals for distributing the Cascade funding. We will have 3 million euros in direct funding support, 2.8 for the Pioneer Acceleration and Orbital projects, where we aim to fund 40 projects in Pioneer Acceleration, so 40 SMEs, and 20 projects in Orbital projects, which means at least another 40 SMEs. So in total, we will fund a group of 80 SMEs among the ecosystem. We will have also travel vouchers to participate and foster participation in the different cross-sectoral events and learning expeditions. And finally, for the hackathons, we will also have 100K in prices, in total prices, so that we can provide an attractive interest for startups and other students to participate, to have the possibility to win the cash prize, and then if they want, they could be also in time to participate in the Cascade funding to accelerate the development to market and generate impact. And with that, I'll let you know that the first call we will open up in March 2021, and we expect to close it by June approximately. So stay tuned for updates. We will be launching the website in the coming weeks. In the coming weeks, and you will have more information there about the project. And thank you all for having my attention. I will give you my contact details here in the screen. You can contact me through email, or you can find me in LinkedIn or in the project website as well. And thank you for your time.
Joseph, thank you indeed for your presentation, and here particularly I would like to stress this channeling of funding through clusters that reaches the SMEs without bureaucratic burden in order to foster innovation, and as well you see innovation being created at the crossroads of different sectors, different ecosystems, where you can go out of the box and find out something which you never thought about if you were very much concentrated on your file, on your things. And now we are moving to Milan, to Lombardy. Professor Marcello Colledani, welcome to us. You are working for years on D&R manufacturing, and then now getting into more and more concrete implementations as well. So I'm convinced that you are going to present something on composite circular economy use case, which would be of interest for everyone here. Marcello, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marek. Dear afternoon to all the participants. My name is Marcello Colledani. I work for Politecnico di Milano and for AFIL, which is the Lombardy Region Cluster on Intelligent Factory. And since years, we are working on this dairy manufacturing for circular economy network partnership. That was originally a Vanguard Initiative partnership and then was also promoted and contributed in the S3P environment, and then became Regio Pilot Action and received support by TAF from DG Growth. So I will somehow go through this journey very quickly and of course pose the most important question mark around funding and contributions and structuring of this project into concrete terms. So I will go to the next slide. Okay, so what is dairy manufacturing first? Well, we include all technologies, tools, and knowledge-based methods that are useful to recover, reuse, and upgrade functions and materials from industrial waste and post-consumer products under a new producer-centric circular economy perspective. So I always read this sentence because I think that is in 4 lines you can actually capture the most important aspects of innovation that we are actually stressing with this partnership. So we want to actually support industrial partners, companies, in the transition towards more business, circular economy-oriented business models. Why dairy manufacturing? Well, because this seems to be a feasible way to combine economic recovery and competitive sustainability in Europe and in our SMEs. It's a very attractive way to propose innovation in our daily businesses. Next slide, please. So the objective of our partnership is to build a network of infrastructure of pilot plants in different European regions, as you will see in a while, that can support demonstrating innovative solutions for companies that are already having a business case in mind and want to check in practice if this business case is feasible before co-investing in the development and the uptake of the solution at real industrial level. So as you can see from the picture on the left, this is a way of systematically promoting the industrial uptake of innovations and of course with a sort of collaborative approach among all the stakeholders that are active in the local ecosystem and stressing the cooperation and the exploitation of smart specialization strategies in the participating regions. So we call it a network of innovation hubs for circular economy that is supporting private investments for industrial uptake. So this is overall our architecture and our structure in order to reach TRL 9 on the most promising results for circular economy. So we are, next slide please, we are structured in 8 regions. The partnership is chaired since the very beginning by Lombardy region, and we have other regions that are distributed around Europe, and we are organized in specific use cases to prove companies that we can actually solve real-life problems by using the capabilities that are present and are under development in these 8 regional hubs. Today, I will focus mainly on the composite recovery from wind energy system, which is one of the use cases that we formulated at the very beginning, and where all the activities I mentioned service have been concentrating to prove the of the operating model. Next slide, please. So what is composite first? Well, very briefly, they are called, well, more properly fiber-reinforced plastics, and are materials that are actually available in many sectors, in many important sectors, in high volume, and even many products that every customer in Europe will actually use, like sport equipment, for example. So what is the challenge with these materials? Next slide, please. The challenge is that currently a stable network for recovering plastics, polymers, and fibers from this material is not existing. So the current solution, well, that is not a solution, but is actually a only practical way to manage these materials after the use phase would be landfill. What are the barriers here? Well, there is clearly a lack of systematic value chain integration and poor customer acceptance of products reusing this material. So we really need to de-risk the companies and proving that it's feasible to reuse this material in new products with high added value applications if we want to make a transformation toward a circular business concrete. Next slide, please. So just to give you some numbers, we can think that this problem is minor in terms of volumes, but actually is not. So we are expecting in 2025. So this is a huge amount of material that would end up in landfill if we don't find a feasible business-oriented solution. Next slide, please. So our proposal, the partnership has been working on finding solutions for reusing these materials into high added value application, into products that can reuse this material instead of virgin material, by taking a cross-sectorial approach where this material coming from one sector can be reused and put into another sector. And this is possible because of the requirements that these other sectors will actually have on the materials, which are less demanding with respect to the originating sector. So as you can see, it's really very much demand-driven approach. Well, the system is a bit slow in changing. I could even change the slide from here. But I don't see it yet. Sorry for that. I will conclude in 30 seconds. Basically, we studied this business case very much in detail. So through the first DigiRegio pilot action, we have identified 12 specific industrial cases of companies that are willing to explore the feasibility of circular business models reusing composites. And all this was starting from the European project Fiber Use that I'm coordinating, where we develop demonstrators for checking the feasibility of this business. So DigiRegio pilot action have a sort of amplification effect by finding more companies. And with the TAF service, we investigated the financials of this systematic approach on using this network of pilot plants in Europe for providing services to companies that have a business idea, maybe roughly formalized, that can then be brought to a higher level network. Of course, financials are used for building up this network and creating this kind of orchestration layer to support the companies to access this network and solve the specific problem, and then to update this summarized saving time, and apologize for the problems which
Okay. Marcello, thank you very much. To be honest, I think what was supposed to be future now is presence, and there's the technological solutions exist. There's need to financial viability of this, and as our European Commissioner for Internal Market said today, the circular economy should be the norm. So thank you very much for this presentation, and I welcome now the someone who is going to present the project of tourism of tomorrow. And actually this is the best proof that tourism is not only about sea, sand and sun, particularly that you are coming from Finland. So let me invite the representative of the Regional Council of Lapland for presentation. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And yes, greetings from Rovaniemi, Lapland. Up north, we include snow and Santa in the sentences when we talk about the tourist appeal in here. A great pleasure to be here and happy to present our view and our meaning, the digitalization and safety for tourist platform. We have been working for several years on the project called Tourists of Tomorrow Lab. And it's a good example of innovation work, I think, because tourist industry being one of the oldest industries, we are quite traditional in many ways. We have been one of the biggest in Europe, and also, as many of us know, we have been the industry, one of the most severe damages caused by the COVID. But what we have been working, so coming from Finland, but our partners include Andalusia, Malaga, and then next door, the Association of Destinations in Europe. And we are really working on intra-regional European project and development work under the topic of Tourists of Tomorrow Lab. We have a strong partnership, and we have several industry partners, where Amadeus being one of the biggest players in reservation systems and data in tourism. And what we are trying to tackle is one of the examples or ideas what Marek said in the opening speeches. We are trying to increase the digitalization of a traditional industry. We are trying to increase the sustainability of the industry, and by powering small and medium-sized companies and destinations with data. The data is the key word for our industry, and for many reasons, the structure of data ownership and power of data seems to be developing the same way as our industry, where some, mostly global giants, control many of the important resources in our industry, and the small and medium-sized companies are lacking in knowledge, in tools, and in competencies of using data to develop their business. What we have is 3 levels of services that we want to help destinations to work on. Basically understand and get access to different types of data, to get the context of data to the levels of destinations, and then converting data into information that helps destinations to be competitive, to be sustainable, and finally converting information into decision. So COVID crisis has just sort of highlighted the challenges that we have, that we don't have good enough tools for forecasting. We don't have good enough analysis to control the tourist flows, and so on. So the structure of Tourists of Tomorrow Lab is to, sorry now, the slide is sort of 4 main types of services. And the one thing that we are planning is the sort of shared big data department. So helping small companies and destinations in Europe to get access, to get understanding the possibilities that data provides for destinations. We are also helping in practical consultancy work, developing tools and systems where the companies and destinations can provide can make better decisions about their marketing, their management challenges and decision making. What we are doing is we are still early steps compared to the early ones. We are now working on our business model with technical assistance facility support. We are working on market research and also developing our services in tight cooperation with, as said, Amadeus, other industry partners, and some of the leading destinations in Europe. We have support from Tuscany, from Valencia, from different areas of Europe. And I see and we see a great value in that we are truly an international network where we can understand the needs and also the opportunities for data in different parts of Europe. We are aiming at mixed financing structure so that we will be developing our piloting products with the COVID-19 recovery funding and also looking for private investment for the structure of development. We will become a public and private structure where we have income sources from the long-term membership of different European tourist destinations, also providing consultant services for destinations, and will be providing a marketplace for data providers for data and also for innovative travel tech companies helping the industry. Here are the contact information. The project manager for this project is Jose Luis from Andalusia, but we as a team are taking the smart specialization, developing the tourists of tomorrow under the smart specialization platform. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and looking forward to the feedback. Thank you.
Christian, thank you very much to you, and you are the best example of the fact that you can be on different sides of Europe and in Andalusia and Lapland and find common ground in order to collaborate and work on new elements in innovation in tourism. But now just imagine you are running or you are jumping or you are doing something which is sport. Imagine how much data you produce. So Mark, you are the last but not the least. Please tell us about your project, which is using in practice data. But you are going to tell us, huh?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm Mark van der Zanden from the Cluster Sports and Technology based in Eindhoven, the Netherlands. And I'm telling you something about our approach on smart vital urban areas and touching topics like public-private investment and revenues, and really the innovation cycle that we use to get really new innovations in these urban areas. I'm not only talking on behalf of the Cluster Sports and Technology, but also on the Clustersport industrial modernization platform. We are in a number of regions here in Europe collaborating, and as Cluster we are co-leading together with Lapland, who had just a presentation on tourism also, this platform. So basically we're focusing on this challenge, the challenge of inactivity. As you know, inactivity is a very major problem in the European community. It causes a lot of problems in terms of health diseases, diabetes 2 or other diseases, and causing a lot of costs in the health sector, but also a lot of casualties. And to be honest, if you're not looking now at the COVID pandemic, it even proves more that this is a critical thing because people who are inactive are more affected by COVID, and basically also people who are more active and are engaged in a healthy, active lifestyle are better resisting this virus. So it's a challenge that we need to pick up. And we come to this kind of approach. We are with a number of regions within the Clustersport community, but 4 of them have already picked up the challenge in setting up a community of innovation hubs for sports and vitality. So using these principles of being sportive or engaging people in a more healthy, active lifestyle, and then bringing our communities into a healthier state. but we want to pick that up from a business perspective and from market opportunities. And we start with 4 regions now, with from Finland, from Italy, from Spain, and from the Netherlands. So it's a truly a pan-European collaboration. And we're now also in a tough support system in order to get a bankable approach here. But it's a systemic approach that we develop. So it's from clusters from the 4 regions. We collaborate really within the regions. We want to support innovation projects. In this, we need public and private collaboration, also from communities like urban communities and companies that are able to provide solutions. And with that, we want to create these vital urban areas. So it's a strong cluster and SME involvement. The business cases are coming from both the governmental approach, but also from the industrial approach. We do co-creation, so we want to implement all these innovations in the real life. So in the Living Lab approach, we want to validate the effect of it. And we derive data in order to monitor what's happening, also on the health status of people, but also on the effectiveness of these innovations. So we generate data from the market, identify market demands, create smart, innovative solutions from that, and scale these up through our international network, so we can also expand from the different regions to the other regions, our approaches. And of course, we want to create result and impact. Impact on an economic level, use scalable business cases, leading to jobs and commercial revenues. And we know that, for example, if you look at sports, it really can create an economic impact, but also on the societal impact. That's important because we want to create livable cities and healthy, active citizens. And as you know, that you might know that if you invest €1 more in this societal area, you get €2.5 revenue on that, in terms of health cost reductions, and also in terms of people more fit for jobs and for life. So using a data-driven and evidence-based approach, we can create innovations in these urban areas. And we're using this innovation cycle approach as our core element of how we scale up. So from a market need, we go into an innovation process supported by knowledge parties and also innovation parties, for example, living labs. We want to validate these in real-life situations in the urban areas. But if proven successful, we want to use acceleration programs and incubation programs by business support parties, and then implement it really into the urban area. So we need municipalities as well. So it's really a public-private combination that we need. But in terms of this innovation cycle, we need a coordination on top of it. So it's a one-stop shop experience. We already have local experiences in our own Eindhoven environment where we can see that this approach really works. Yep, next slide. There it is. So maybe hard to see, but we need services on all these different levels. Services on the market need, on innovation challenges and hackathons, support for prototype development. We need support in order to be able to validate these in real life and creating data from it, and acceleration programs. I don't know if you can see it very well. For me, it's a bit blurred, but hopefully you can see the slide. But if you look at these services, we also need a funding mix there. We need funding mixes in terms of procurement, in terms of innovation programs, but also in terms of acceleration programs, and also in terms of support of implementing all these innovations in the real market environment. So we need a kind of a funding mix in all these different services that we want to create in order to bring all these innovation opportunities to real life. Just as a first indication, we're working now with the TEF experts to get a better picture on this. We need in different phases, we need public investments, we need private investments from companies and from businesses, but also we need third-party investments in order to really scale up in acceleration programs, etc. So this is the first rough estimate that we have now as an idea that we have submitted in this application. And of course, investment needs revenue. We see short-term revenues in terms of business revenues and also in terms of innovation services revenues, but and more in the long term in the acceleration programs. But also we see this societal revenue that is maybe a little bit more long term, but very important, especially if you look at now in the situation that we are in Europe confronting with this vitality problems. But so if you look at this perspective, we see that the investment in sports and vitality will pay off. We have an emerging cluster network in Europe that exists, and we need support. There are market needs and business opportunities, and those are the drivers of our innovation cycle. And basically what we see that we need to transition from the societal challenges into really public-private business models. And that's something that a health challenge can be converted into a consumer business model. And that's where we are focusing on. But what we need is a public and private innovation and investment funding in order to be able to set this wheel in motion of this innovation cycle. And also what is important that we have to change this public-private paradigm on investment and return in investment, because it's not just on short-term investment and returns on investments. We also need the long-term picture. So this is my presentation and my pitch. Hopefully I have put the seed in your minds in order to support in this approach. And we're very welcome to receive your feedback.
Mark, thank you very much. I think we have 15 minutes left, and it is quite a good food for comments, discussions, and reflection from our experts. So as I mentioned, we have the European Investment Bank, European Executive Agency for Small and Medium Enterprises, and the entrepreneur with the private financing experience. So let me start with Mark Mawini. Mark, you are the head of the division in the European Investment Bank. You set up the European Investment Advisory Hub. You have long list of years of evaluating the projects from the perspective of institutional banking. Can you share with us your views?
I can. I presume you can hear me, because
yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. It's fine. It's fine.
Brilliant.
Please, you have 4 minutes, please.
Okay. I'll start off by just a brief explanation of what I've seen so far. For me, each of the clusters has a very viable concept, which can lead to something positive. There's no doubt about that. That I can see. And it chimes with a lot of the proposals that come through the system within the bank. Within the bank, we deal with about 13 billion euros worth of innovative projects on a yearly basis. In total, the turnover is about 65, 67 billion. So you can get a feel for how much of it is innovation. But what I would say is that the development of clusters is different from the development of bankable projects for organizations like the EIB. And while I'm pleased to be at this and to give a view from the bank perspective, I'm very aware that you in developing clusters are not the same as what I would normally deal with in developing bankable projects. But what I'll try to do is help. Okay, so the difference, I think, would be that we within the bank need viable legal entities. We need solid business plans. we need to see what we call skin in the game from stakeholders, and we need sustainable markets, or an understanding of a potential sustainable market going forward. So what I would suggest is that the cluster plans, as they develop and go forward, I'm not suggesting they need to be there now, but certainly to move forward, you need to then build these viable legal entities, the solid business plans, the sustainable markets. But there also needs to be an acceptance that parts of the cluster will attract some financiers more than others. So it's a game where you've got to be careful that jealousy doesn't come into it. And it's certainly about translating political desire into commercial sense. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm well aware that in attracting grant financing, the political desire is sometimes different from what you would need in a commercial world. And I'm sure most of you, as successful attractors of grants, can become successful attractors of finance as your plans progress. Another thing I would say is that COVID has had a huge impact. The clusters that we've seen so far, tourism is one area, and aerospace another, where within the bank we've seen projects just disappearing. We're aware that tourism has been very badly hit, and it's very difficult for all of us to work out how do we deal with it, adjust it, or adapt to it. So it's just one of these things that we try to work our way around, and I see that there's a couple of these clusters that are working in those areas, and you'll have to address that question when you're talking to financiers. How will you adjust? What will you do in order to deal with that going forward? Another one was the investment in health, and I think one of the speakers said that investment in health does pay off. And for the EIB as a public sector bank, we're well aware of how much it pays off. A lot of the analysis we do is around cost-benefit analysis, which is not profit, but it is the benefit to society. So we're well aware that it is something that pays off, but you've got to be aware that its conversion to profit can be difficult to understand for financiers. So they speak a language, you speak a different language. You've got to understand how to translate for them and to help them moving forward. Finally, for me, there is the need to understand the financial packages available and the journey from grants to things for things like clusters through to a variety of financial hybrid instruments there are now. The Commission and the bank have been particularly good in producing a range of hybrid instruments where there's guarantees and first loss pieces and all manner of financial engineering going on. But essentially, it's almost a semi-grant. So there's grants, there's semi-grants, and then there's equity and loans for the individual opportunities which arise from each of your clusters. And it's important also that you know how to use them to de-risk the market and the product and allow the financiers to be more interested as each stage progresses. So in a sense, I see where you are with the clusters in being pre-market, and there are financial support for that through the market development, which again has different forms of financial support, through to sales development, where the commercial banks then start to get much more interested. In summarizing, what I would say is that even within the EIB, where we're a public sector bank, the content of a proposal coming to us is and remains key. So I hope that sort of helps you. I see some very viable concepts, but I can also see a journey ahead of you in order to attract financiers.
Mark,
Marek, do you want to? come back or
yes, Mark.
questions?
Thank you very much for very valuable. I think people were listening very carefully what you were saying, because it's a real financial perspective, and I like what you said about political desire and financial viability. It must come together in order to have really investment projects. Daniel, welcome you. And you evaluating actually the EU funds. You are giving money, no? You are giving money. So can you tell us what is your view on looking at the project that you just seen? Welcome.
Thank you, Marek. Thanks a lot. So first of all, thanks for inviting me to this very interesting conference, which has become a world reference in the cluster world. Hello to all the UNICEF One partners. Hello to the members of my team which are present. And just a short word about the ASME. So indeed, we are managing programs on behalf of the European Commission. My sector in particular is managing the UNICEF work program. So this is now around 120 projects for an overall value of 140 million. And my unit is also managing some other actions financed by COSME, which is Cluster Go International and Cluster Excellence. And before coming back to the subject, just letting you know that we have released today with the official publication office our second report about the impact of UNICEF One actions. You will find there lots of interesting data for all of you. Just some figures: 24 projects across 39 countries with 204 partners, 36 million given in the form of grants or services to SMEs, for a total of 2,600 SMEs, and also generating 204 SME-led consortia. So in a nutshell, so indeed, it's for me impossible today to give individual feedback to all of the projects. All of them were very interesting, but just some words about grants in the same way that Mark addressed the financial side. So what is very important to know is that very often we're getting this out of our views, is that EU grants represent a rather small portion of grants in the majority of the countries, except of course agriculture, where it's a common policy. But don't underestimate the resources which are available at national or at regional level, because usually they are much higher than what we can provide you here with the European grants. And then if I'm focusing now on EU grants, you should really focus on where you have the best chances, unless you are the best. So for instance, if you take UNICEF One, which are these very interesting grant projects with the Cascade Funding, this is a very low success rate because, for instance, for this call 2020, we have received 132 proposals, which will generate 5 to 6 projects in the overall. So you can see that the competition is extremely high. So congrats to Josette, if you're still connected, you made it. And so now for the coming year, I would recommend you to have a specific look to some maybe hidden opportunities. The first one is what is happening now on the regional funds side. The volumes there are very high. You have a very also the opportunity to finance infrastructures. So I think this is now, you should be putting this on the top of your desk. And maybe a very short mention about the European Defence Fund, because this fund is massive. And I just want to highlight the fact that it's not only for defense industry, it is very much also for dual use, meaning bringing a civil solution to the military or the opposite. So these, for the moment, would be my tips of the day. But in any case, of course, for the evaluation, I won't spend too much time on this, but when you're making the proposal, it's the best thing for you is to check what are the evaluation criteria, because that's what your proposal will be assessed against. So you have to convince the public authorities, be it us here in Brussels or any other public authority, also at national or regional level, about your capacity to support SMEs. I mean, that's the heart of the game. And once you have signed the grant agreement, you have to deliver. And also, you have to communicate. You know that we like a lot in Brussels that you are communicating about the European origin of the funds that you're using for your projects. And of course, the main preoccupation of any public authority is to make sure that the money that is invested with public on the public side will bring back value. So I'm coming back also to what Mark said from EIB, and also quoting one of the speakers today, Mark van der Zande. Typically, he gave the example that if we put €1 in the project, it will create 2.5 euros of value for society. So this is precisely what any public authority is looking for in case of grants. Just some words about the service offer that you can generate with your project or in your clusters for SMEs. So of course, it can be either the delivery of services or examples of Cascade Funding. We have very much in InnoSup 1. But what is very important for the end user, for our SMEs, is that you are helping them to connect them to other companies. And I think this is where InnoSup 1 is providing most of value, because we are generating lots of European networks of SMEs. And this has a high value, specifically when you're working in very tiny areas where there are not so many players. You need to scale up at European level for finding the partners. And it's also a good start for SMEs to go towards the international expansion. So these networks of SMEs are there for generating exchanges for knowledge, but they're also there for acquainting SMEs, specifically newcomers in the international sphere, to go ahead at the international level, because being in such kind of European networks is really helping a lot for them to work on international business later on. And probably the last important part for the service offer that you can provide to your SMEs is to connect to investors. We see this very often in InnoSup 1 projects. So this is also a very important dimension. Just to end with, don't forget to connect yourself to the Enterprise Europe Network. They can help you with the engineering of EU-granted projects. They also can tell you more about mechanisms, like the one which are handled by the EIB or the EIF, usually more in the back. And they can also help you in recruiting SMEs for your projects. Typically for InnoSup 1, where there is Cascade Funding, they can help you in finding the SMEs which would be having the right profile for joining your project as beneficiary or sub-beneficiary. So, as I have a very limited time, I will stop here. I will just let you know that as we are usually closing the European conferences with a cocktail, this evening I will have a glass of champagne for you because it's my wife's birthday. So I will be thinking at all of you and remain at your disposal for any questions. Thank you.
Daniel, thank you very much. Thank you for the insight. And we go immediately to Irene. Irene, you have experience, particularly in London with the financial sector. Can you tell us, if you were going to finance from the private financing point of view, what would you think about this project? Hi, Irene, welcome.
Right. Hi. I'm just going to complement what the previous speaker said by giving the 4 projects very brief individual feedback, if I may. Starting with Galactica, I know the space area quite well. I think from the startup, if I'm being the startup champion here, this project provides good startup potential. I like the way that you introduce lean practices. I like the fact that you have projects in there which, for very little money, try to get to MVP stage or further. So I think also having helped to build an ESA Business Incubation Center in Northern Germany, I know that working with ESA, the European Space Agency, but also EBAN, puts you in touch with an investor network, which is good. So I think that the tangible projects coming out of Galactica are interesting from an investor point of view. Textiles, space industry, also in the context of a pandemic, might be interesting. I can see business cases emerging there. And I can see that you're applying lean methods to do this. So that would get probably my highest score at the moment in terms of feasibility, viability for private investors. The circular economy, composites, Marcello, totally an important project, but for me, a bit more geared towards industry, big industry. I see potential for the collaboration between industry and startups, but I cannot see an immediate business case. So for my recommendation for you would be to really find tangible business cases for those composite plastics to enter the market, and how startups, early stage companies, can play a role in this alongside industry. Okay, and going to Finland and Lapland, a tourism idea. Data is huge, that's true, but what I'm missing there again are tangible business cases and the startup potential within that. There is also actually an interesting crossover with the space industry and geospatial data that you might want to include in tourism, but I'm still lacking a little bit of detail there as to how that idea is going to turn into business cases, tangible business cases where startups can get involved and turn sort of also create commercial companies around that. Smart urban area, I've just worked with a startup in Belgium that's addressing that area. It's very early stages. So again, here we need to become more specific. That was a skateboarding company, an urban skateboarders. There are urban sports which are quite specific, which you can do in urban landscapes. So yes, there are startups. They're creating all kinds of slightly woolly platforms, and it's about creating products, creating services that citizens want. And I'm missing that a little bit at the moment. So creating a vision for what that urban vitality actually means. I think there's a huge potential in times of a pandemic and lots of diseases spreading the population. But you need to be more specific. And that young urban area it's a particular age group that we're addressing here. So what is coming out of that? Are you working with big sports companies? Are you working with those youngster platforms that address those urban sports? It's not probably for the clientele, at least I can't immediately see it, 50 to 60, where we probably are seeing most of the health problems. So again, a little bit more specific, where you see the business case, where you see the collaboration and the vision for this project going.
Irene, thank you very much. I think it was very, very straight to the point and concise comment. As in private business, you have 2-3 minute pitches, and then you need to sell your product. I think what is very important, we are going to finalize now. And let me thank you very much on behalf of the European Commission, on behalf of my commissioner, my director, my head of unit, who were presenting today. We were listening to high-level speakers, panelists. You were able to listen to practitioners in cluster management, to public administration, discussing these topics. You were able to have interaction during the World Cafe sessions, and now we ended up with the financial with the session on how really you can finance your projects. Thank you very much on behalf of the Commission for European Commission for meeting us today. Berlin, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am here. Thank you. Thank you, Marek. You're right, of course. It was an awesome day. I tried to be as fast as possible because it was a long day for all of us. I saw and heard so many inspiring discussions, breakout sessions, and yeah, from the breakout session to the round table, and a few minutes ago, the financial pitching. For me, as a first-time participant for the conference, this was all a really impressive experience. And now, after the brief, I hope there's a brief introduction for tomorrow, because I'm even looking forward to tomorrow. I really hope you share that excitement with me. And for now, I wish you a nice evening and hope to see you all again tomorrow. And to close with the words of my minister, please stay healthy. Bye-bye.
And now, welcome back for the final words. What a day. From the very morning, from the opening remarks till the very last session, I think this was a great chance it's a true platform to connect, to collaborate, to cooperate, to picture clusters. So join us tomorrow because we will continue with various formats. Please note that in the morning we will be starting half an hour earlier, and please be on time because after the opening remarks, the 3 candidates for the shortlisted candidates for the European Cluster Manager of the Year will be presenting themselves. So we need you to be with us because after that the voting will start. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the contributors today. Thank you for the speakers. Thank you for all delegates being with us through the entire day. And thank you to the team behind for making this day possible. Thank you.